At 40, my husband cheated on me with his young secretary. To make things worse, my own son treated her like a second mother. He even once said to me, "Look at you, covered in freckles, ugly and dumb. How could you ever be good enough for my dad?" Humiliated and pressured by both father and son, I finally signed the divorce papers, tears burning in my eyes as I walked away. When I stepped into the cab dragging my worn-out suitcase behind me, I thought that was the end of it. But then my son followed, slinging his backpack over one shoulder. "Mom, that $2 million? I fought for it. Don't think you can keep it all to yourself." At the company's anniversary gala, my husband, Robert Collins, held his young secretary, Olivia, in his arms as they twirled across the dance floor. Her red dress billowed, catching not just his eye but his heart as well. My son, Michael, walked over with a champagne flute in hand, sneering as he glanced at me. "Had enough of the show?" Then, without waiting for an answer, he looked me up and down, his voice dripping with disdain. "Look at yourself. That dull dress, those age spots. What are you even wearing? If I were you, I'd take the money and leave while I still could." I turned to him, my 16-year-old son, and felt tears well up. Michael chuckled and strolled off, his champagne glass catching the light as he approached Robert and Olivia, who had just stepped off the dance floor. He clinked glasses with Olivia, their laughter blending seamlessly with the music. Michael whispered something to her, making Olivia giggle behind her hand in an almost coy manner. Robert gave Michael a playful punch on the shoulder, his expression filled with fatherly indulgence. Michael clutched his chest theatrically, yelping in mock pain, making both Robert and Olivia laugh. They looked like a perfect little family, my husband, his mistress, and my own son. Tears burned my eyes once again. I lowered my gaze to my black dress, swallowed the lump in my throat, and quietly walked away. I sat alone in the darkness, memories replaying like a cruel, unrelenting reel. 6 months ago, an anonymous video arrived on my phone. A dimly lit hotel suite. A king-sized bed. And on it, Robert and Olivia, completely bare, tangled in each other's arms. When I confronted him, he simply scoffed and muttered, "I had too much to drink." Before I could unleash my fury, he grabbed his coat, slammed the door, and vanished. For a week he didn't return. And when he finally resurfaced, it wasn't to come home, it was to sign off on a new house. A luxury apartment in the city, where he set Olivia up comfortably. A young, polished business school graduate with a British accent. What a fine match. At the time, Michael was preparing his application for an elite prep school. I couldn't afford a scandal, so I swallowed my grief, argued with Robert in hushed tones at night, and wiped away silent tears while waiting for him to come home. But he never did. At midnight, they finally returned, their voices light with laughter as they stepped through the door. I wiped my face dry, straightened my back, and said calmly, "Robert, let's get a divorce." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he picked up a glass and poured himself some water. Michael casually kicked off his shoes, grabbed his father's arm, and led him into the study. I had no idea how much time passed before they emerged again. Robert approached me, a hint of guilt flickering in his eyes. "Diana, I owe you this much. Let's just get it over with. Name your terms." I shook my head. I had already lost my husband. And my son, my own flesh and blood, was nothing but a cold-hearted opportunist. What was left to fight for? I wiped my tears only to hear Michael scoff again. "Mom, you know Dad's reputation means everything in business. Do you really want to ruin that? People are already talking about him and Olivia. If you leave without taking a dime, what do you think they'll say? They'll call him heartless. A man who abandoned his wife without a penny." Through my blurry vision, I turned to Robert. He looked conflicted. So, even my silence was a mistake. Was my suffering such an inconvenience to their carefully constructed narrative? Robert let out a slow breath before speaking. "Fine. You can have the Catskills villa. But forget about the company shares. You wouldn't know how to manage them anyway. We'll cash you out $2 million. That's more than fair. Take it, sign the papers, and walk away. Don't bother Dad again." I let out a bitter laugh. Like father, like son. The Collins bloodline truly ran cold. Robert started to say something else, but Michael leaned in and whispered a few words in his ear. Robert's frown softened and a small smile played at the corners of his lips. He patted Michael's shoulder approvingly. "All right, son. I trust you. Then turning back to me he put on a performance of reluctant regret. Let's make it official. Tomorrow morning 8 o'clock. I'll have the lawyer ready. Just sign the papers and move on, Diana. With that he shut the bedroom door with a decisive click. A sharp, cutting finality. And just like that my marriage was over. Robert and I had built everything from nothing side by side. We had been partners in struggle, bound by hardship and ambition. I thought stepping away from the business to be a devoted wife and mother would bring stability, a home filled with love. I never imagined that, in the end, hearts could change so completely. What once was mutual support had rotted into contempt and disgust. The next morning I was shaken awake by Michael. Hurry up, he urged, already impatient. We need to go. I sat up slowly, watching him rush me as if he was more eager to get this divorce over with than his philandering father. On the way to the courthouse he didn't hesitate to announce his plans. I'll be staying with Dad, of course. If I stick with you I might starve to death. I turned to him. My son, the same boy who had once clung to my hand, called me Mommy with bright eyes and promised to take care of me when he grew up. At what point had he changed? Had the selfishness in Robert's blood been passed down so easily? I signed the papers. There was still a mandatory asset assessment period before finalizing everything. Michael handed my old, worn-out purse to Robert and whispered something in his ear. Whatever he said made Robert beam. His mood instantly lifted. Michael, however, turned back to me with a straight face. Come on, I'll take you to the villa. No need to go off hiding and crying alone like some dramatic housewife. His grip was firm as he pulled me toward the car. I wanted to shake him off, but in the end I couldn't. The villa was spotless when we arrived, cleaned from top to bottom. A housekeeper was already inside, setting the table. I sat numbly at the dining room table as plates of elegantly plated food were placed in front of me. Michael ladled a bowl of seafood porridge and slid it toward me. This $2 million includes my living expenses, so you better start cooking for me. And don't skimp on the groceries. I hired a housekeeper to help. I'll cover her pay, but you better not cheap out on my meals. I took a spoonful of the soup, but all I could taste was bitterness. Still, thinking about how divorce could affect Michael, I forced myself to say, Mikey, your father and I divorced because of our own issues. I don't want you to overthink things. Just focus on your studies, okay? Michael let out a sharp laugh. Overthink. He took a deep sip of his porridge, his expression indifferent. I've got food, a roof over my head, and now I even have a stepmother to spoil me. Life's good. Then he rolled his eyes and added, Oh please. Don't tell me you're acting like one of those tragic housewives from the 80s. You're better than that. He spoke so casually, so detached as he ate heartily, completely unbothered. For some reason that nonchalance, his complete lack of concern, made the weight on my chest feel lighter. After eating, Michael disappeared. I walked through the villa, noticing the small touches. New potted plants, fresh linens, rooms that had been rearranged to feel warmer, cozier. Lying on the large bed, sunlight streaming in through the windows, I realized, maybe life wouldn't be so unbearable after all. At noon, the housekeeper prepared ribs, seafood, and a special soup I loved. Robert was allergic to seafood. I had almost forgotten what it tasted like. Sitting at the dining table alone, savoring every bite, my mood finally began to lift. That night, I hesitated before picking up my phone. I wanted to ask Michael if he'd come home for dinner. Before I could type, my screen lit up. A new notification. A photo. Michael, Olivia, and Robert, clinking glasses, arms draped around each other. A dimly lit, upscale restaurant. Red wine. Smiling faces. My fingers trembled as I traced the screen, scrolling through the pictures over and over. Tears fell one by one. Michael's love existed, but just barely. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, a dull, empty ache spreading through my chest. 20 years of devotion. And in the end? A joke. The bedroom light suddenly flicked on. I shielded my eyes from the brightness, squinting to see Michael standing by the door. God, look at you. Pathetic. Michael gives me a deadpan stare, full of exaggerated disappointment. With a sharp flick of his wrist, he tosses a wad of cash at me. Here, sign up for a yoga class. Get your hair done. Buy some decent clothes. Next time there's a parent-teacher conference, try not to embarrass me. I sat up abruptly. Where the hell did you get all this money? You didn't? Michael rolled his eyes. Can you not assume the worst for once? It's a big day. Dad's in a great mood, so he handed me some cash. He nudged me. Come on, get up. I brought you a steak from that fancy French place. Eat it before it gets cold. Michael grabbed my arm and practically dragged me downstairs. Sitting at the dining table, chewing on the perfectly cooked steak, I couldn't stop my tears from falling. Michael let out a small chuckle and handed me a napkin. Mom, what kind of mother are you? Crying all the damn time. You're turning me soft. Then for the first time in a long while he held my hand. His voice turned serious. Mom, from now on just live for yourself. Leave the money stuff to me. I'm his only son. You really think he won't give me money? Just watch. 3 days later, Michael came home with another 20 grand. I stared at him stunned. Robert might be a well-known businessman, but he was infamously stingy. I used to get only $4,000 a month for household expenses. Just days ago, Michael had already taken 10 grand. And now, another 20? Michael slung an arm around my shoulder. French, literature, math, physics. Tutoring fees, 30 grand. I promised I'd make top 50 by the finals. I nodded. Then go ahead and register. Michael plopped the cash into my hands instead. I changed my mind. I'll skip French and literature. I'll study them myself. I frowned. Michael, academics are important. You can't just. Before I could finish, Michael shoved the money into my lap and nudged me toward the door. Relax. Trust your son's genius. I'll at least crack the top 100 next time. Then, as if it were an afterthought, he smirked. By the way, did you book your yoga and spa treatments yet? If you don't start looking decent soon, I'll make Olivia attend parent-teacher conferences instead. Standing at the doorway holding the thick stack of cash, I let out a long breath before finally heading out. For 10 days Michael didn't show up at the villa. When he finally did, he slammed a form onto the table. This is a business school training program. You're an embarrassment. Go learn something. At least try to keep up with the world. I hesitated. I'm 40, Michael. What's the point of going back to school now? Michael immediately darkened his expression. Fine.